Das klappt alles.
Soll ich die Leute admitten oder machst du das?
Das würde ich machen, genau. Ich würde gerne kurz einen Final Check machen, ob wir live sind auf unserem Channel. Okay, dann admitte ich Sie mal. So, welcome. Thanks for joining. The wait room time is over. Wonderful.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Everyone.
Hello. Nice to meet you. Nice to hear you. So we are almost on time. Hello and welcome everyone to a new aiLights session. A session where you will get an inside look into the AI sourcing strategies of 4 Swiss corporates. This is actually our first session that has been fully planned and organized by a guest host. And this guest host is Michael Wegmüller, co-founder of Artifact. Hi, Michael.
Hello, everybody. Very nice to see you here online.
Great. Personally, it's a real pleasure to me to welcome you, as you have been actively connecting the Swiss ecosystem and sharing your expertise for several years now. And I really appreciate this effort, and I would like to share this here. So in today's session, we will take a deep dive into the Swiss corporates and how they are approaching AI sourcing. Are they building, buying, or blending? And a big thank you to all our guests for being here and sharing your insights with the public. And it's great to see such openness, and it helps others to learn from your experiences. Couple of quick notes before we start. This session is being streamed live on YouTube and on LinkedIn. And you are welcome to drop your questions in the chat. And we will try to do our best to answer them during the session and in the Q&A part at the end. So, Michael, thanks again for organizing such a great panel. And who are our guests today?
Yeah, so thank you very much. It's very exciting to be here, and thanks for this format. I'm really happy to see that we have such a good AI platform here in Switzerland to share and beyond. And I think that's also what resonated with our guests today, because this great session is nothing without our guests. And today I'm very pleased to welcome also Rea Wenk from CSS. We will also welcome Romain Bonjour from Swisscom. We have Matthias Kollmann from Helvetia Baloise. And last but not least, we have also Pascal Simon from Viseka, who will share on how they are navigating this very interesting question on build, buy, or blend. I'm not sure, Sabine, if there's something else to add from your end.
No, from my end, it's all good. So we can start.
Very good. So, look, we have thought about this session because of many customer interaction over the last months and years. As part of Artifact, we are supporting now more than 50 Swiss organizations on their transformation on AI, be that in implementation services or also on strategic services. And one theme that has been popping up more often than probably half a year or a year ago is the question: should we buy or should we build? Or is there probably also a hybrid approach like blend? And that has motivated us also to have this session today. And in our discussion with the partners that have been joining today, we also see that there is more for governance, more frameworks arising right now into organizations, as now also AI strategies are becoming more firm and more clear on how and where to actually embed and implement AI. So now it really comes to the question, after also the exploration, how do we get more serious? How do we bring more AI solutions into production? And how do we best govern it to make the good sourcing decision on build, buy, or blending as such? And if we look a little bit into this continuum, there is actually a lot of different flavors around build or buy. I'm not going into all of these details, but maybe you have been engaged already with multiple forms here. And typically also what we see, most organizations are not only on one side or another side. However, there is probably a predominant way. Probably also to add on top of that, there is also different flavors of build. While own building could be a good way to build up own capabilities, there is also a way to put their external support. And that's in particular also where Artifact right now is engaging with multiple customers. Also today we will explore a little bit across this continuum and learn about where our four partners in the call are operating these days. If we look here into a latest report from Gartner, there must be a lot of pressure right now on the business and on AI decision makers, because basically the net is everybody is pressing on AI solutions into organizations. So I guess you can agree to that statement that there is almost not any customer meeting or partner meeting or internal business meeting or IT meeting where AI is not a topic. So ideas are everywhere. The software vendors come with how they can embed AI in their software. The implementation partners bring it from their side. The AI and technology department has ideas. And now the question is how to best govern. And for most of the use cases, there are also multiple solutions. So there is typically a build approach, but there's also various, as you have seen before on the flavors, there's various ways on how to buy probably also a particular solution. If we look at some numbers, and this is some numbers from a former employee from Artifact side who has looked a little bit into the European Union and Switzerland, and what we can see here that the hybrid is the most common approach in terms of sourcing decisions. So most organizations actually make a decision depending on the case, depending on the project. So 37% are having both build or buy. In total, if you add it up with the ones that only are in the buying, the 34%, it's about 70% buy, which is also what we can, probably observe on the market, is that buy still is some sort of a dominance on the market. However, also make has certainly a play, and I'm coming to that in a second. If we look here on the BCG a borrowed framework around the different type of AI implementations these days, typically, we make a distinction between everyday AI tools. This is tools like ChatGPT or Company GPT, Enterprise GPT, but also Midjourney. These are tools that are implemented in organizations in order to have an immediate effect. And here, apparently, we also see a clear strategy on buying. And maybe that also represents the 70% we have seen before, maybe also represents the stage where organizations are today. So that many of them are right now integrating and implementing AI-based standard services in order to support their employees into the everyday jobs. We, however, also believe and agree here also with the BCG side, there is a bigger case on the reshape. And the reshape is part of the automation. It's looking into processes. It's a bit more a strategic approach to basically on an evaluation where the biggest effect on AI will be, and then look into these processes across the value stream and have a concrete solution embedded into the processes, integrated into services. And here, basically, the buy approach to take a standard software starts to become much more difficult. And hence, we see here also a build approach or probably a blend approach. We're going to talk about that later on today in the panel. But that's probably also now where organizations are starting to get more strategic about where really to make bigger investments. While the everyday AI more or less is a given, you have to provide to employees a certain tool. On the reshape side, still important decisions are being made. And the rethink, just last but not least, here we are really talking about differentiating potential unique selling proposition or entirely new business models based on AI. Clearly here as well, the buy would not work because it's not existing yet. And here clearly it needs to be a strong build. So I'm coming more or less to the last slides. If we look a little bit on the trend, because we also thought it might be interesting to see if there's an evolution between 2024 and 2025. And it's interesting to see that actually in 2024, there was more build, so more make approaches done, according here to Menlo Venture Capitalists. And if we look into 2025, the number of purchased solution has increased. So that might have multiple reasons. We will also have some time in our panel to talk about, but some of them might for sure be that some of these standard solutions start to become more customizable, or on the other hand side, because also organizations who have initially explored in 2024, which would be more on the make approach, have now decided to probably go with a SaaS-based solution, which right now is built. I would anticipate that in 2026, this number probably will reduce again a little bit, but I'm also then very curious to hear what my panel thinks about it. And if we look into the build approach, in that sense, right now, what we see, or also what Menlo has seen, that it's mainly on retrieval augmented generation, RAG systems that are specialized internally built approaches, and then simple workflow application. So it's still kind of not rare, but not too many organizations are familiarizing or have been at large scale implemented such services. Well, at that time, that's as a quick introduction from my end on where we see the market and then probably some numbers on that. I'm now very, very pleased to introduce you to Romain. Bonjour. So Romain is a lead site reliability engineer transmission. I've already, tried this word for multiple times. Probably the most difficult word in this whole panel. But
It's difficult on purpose, Michael. It's on purpose.
exactly. So I should go in the short version, the lead 3 transformation. And as such, Romain is responsible for strategic AI-led projects in the service area. He comes with more than 5 years of experience in the AI. And I'm very, very pleased to have you here, Romain, to share a little bit on how you are organizing into this zoo of different solutions and possibilities, how you do that at Swisscom. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Miguel. So, before I start, I just wanted to reflect on something you said. You were speaking about everyday AI, reshape AI, and rethink AI. And I think it's a very good introduction because it's extremely difficult to make a statement on buy, build, or blend because the scope of solution is huge, or the scope of problems we are trying to solve with AI is really huge. It's not at all the same if you try to solve a small problem in the everyday AI column that you share, or if you want to totally rethink how your company is working with AI. So in my case, and this is also reflected in what I'm going to say, I'm really focusing on transforming how Swisscom does operation, bringing far more software engineering skills, AI features into all the network and infrastructure operation we do. So it's a massive transformation which obviously have very different need and consequences compared to other AI implementation we may have. That being said, let's start. You can move to the next slide. My most important slide, as you know, Michael, the red one. So I do enjoy having those red slides, and for everyone in the audience, red slide matters. So the important things I want to pass to you are on red slide. All the rest is time filler because I was asked to speak for 10 minutes. So you can continue to drink coffee, just be careful or look at the red slides. Please, next one, which is not red. To explain a bit or to give a bit more context on what I wanted to say, I'm going to speak about one project that I'm leading, which is about transforming the way we operate. So do the operation, change, incident, problems, and so on, using AI and Gen AI. And with that, we really want to fundamentally transform how Swisscom is being operated from a technical standpoint. And that project, if you go to the next slide, Michael, focuses, no, one back. We focus on change management, incident management, and problem management at first. And I'm going to take out 3 bullet points out of those 3 columns to explain that a bit better. In change management, we do something called risk prediction. So every time we want to implement a big change in our networks, in our infrastructure, in our software, we are considering what could be the possible risks tied to that change, what are possible mitigation measures, how much time it costs to implement those measures, etc., etc. So every time we do a change in the networks, we have all this consideration of the risk that is tied to it. This risk analysis can be done with Gen AI quite well, based on all the history of the incidents you have, based on all the information you have about your change, and so on. So all those information, all those data you have around, you can use them to here make the work of our engineers a lot easier because all the analysis around the risks will be done in a qualitative way, always automatically for each changes. Second column, incident management. I wanted to highlight incident troubleshooting. So you start an incident you know you have an issue somewhere. You need to collect a lot of insights manually to have a clue where to look, what could be the problems, and how to solve the problem. Again, here AI can be of tremendous help. You can use all the former incident from that service, from another service. You can gather all your technical documentation. You can gather your observability data. So it's always about here gathering a lot of data, put that in the context of your Gen AI system and help the user to react faster. In that case here, that's a way we see to reduce our mean time to restore services from today something like 60 minutes down to 5 minutes. So it's a huge shift also in quality for our customers, which cannot be done by the old ways with human working on it. We just don't have the capacity to analyze hundreds of documents in minutes. Last but not least, problem management. I wanted to say something on mitigation recommendation. So we want to be far more proactive. We want to avoid incidents before they take place. And for that, we have different paths. But what I wanted to focus here is once you have identified a risk in your architecture, automatically, we can directly make recommendation on how to adapt the architecture, the configuration, different settings of a service to avoid incidents. And that's for me the holy grail of operation with AI. We don't even have incidents because we were proactively avoiding them. Next slide, please. What I wanted to say also with that is even with one single project like this one, and we have hundreds of AI projects at Swisscom, but only with one, you see, we have different needs. We have different problems, different things we want to do. So the buy or build decision is extremely complex. Because if I would take only, I don't know, the incident troubleshooting case, I could probably find an extremely good solution to do it that fit my issues or my context. But as soon as you want to bring more things in, it's far more difficult. So please keep that in mind as more the context of the project increase, the bigger it becomes, the more challenging it's going to be to buy, and the more you have to go to build, at least in my view. Next slide, please. And you just have to ask yourself some key questions on what you want to do with project with a use case. Do you want to gain efficiency? Be faster? Do you want to access information easily? In large companies like mine, we have a lot of information that have been stored for decades over different paths, not always easy to access. Do you want to increase the quality, the reliability of your service? Do you want to add transparency, security? So there are many angles or many benefits you can gain out of AI use case, and you need to be very sharp and clear on those goals. If you don't have that well defined, finding the right solution is going to be quite impossible. Next slide, please. And a reason why it's very hard to find tool is that there is a lot of tools. And I guess since we started that presentation 19 minutes ago, you probably have 12 more startups that are bringing AI tools around the world somewhere. And this tool map, this landscape of possible tools you can use is extremely complex to navigate. So you cannot assess all of them as you could have with vendors a couple of years ago. So you need another strategy. You need to be able to adapt far quickly on the tools you use. And the crucial aspect to do that is to master your data in your own form. What you should never do if you build, if you buy tools, is to adapt all your data structure to that given tools, because then you get a lock-in. What you want is the tool to be adapted to a standard way of managing your data. And if you have that, it's relatively easy to change tools and benefit from new solutions. So the key to be able to use the tools, not to navigate the tool, to use them is to master your data correctly. Next slide, please. And then some other thoughts on buy or build. As already said, what are your main challenges? What makes you unique? because quite often when you build a tool, it also comes with workflow, with processes, with something that are already there. Is that supporting your uniqueness or is that killing it? That's super important in terms of your strategy. You need to remain unique with your solution. Your data structure is always key. As I said, you need to master your data, but the more specialized your data are, the more difficult it's going to be to find a tool. And you have also to check the skills, obviously. Next slide, please. I think I'm almost done. Yeah. Yeah, what I wanted to say here are the challenging questions to everyone, not only my co-panelists, but everyone in the call. Is that still the same in 2026? I am not sure. Because with AI and Gen AI, building tools yourself is becoming faster and easier. You can use a lot of coding help to generate tools. And by the end of the year, I'm quite sure that those AI tools will be able to generate a lot for you. And please continue to check that while you are building your strategy. Your strategy may be right for 6 months, but you may have to refresh it in 6 months because the build will become a lot cheaper. Next and last slide, please. It's just a sentence I got many times that I want you to reflect on, and then I'm done. I often hear that it takes humans something like 20 hours to learn how to drive. Machines still cannot after years of training. In terms of comparison of what AI and human can do, I fully disagree with that statement because the human brain has been trained, developed over millions of years. So be patient. If you believe AI is not good enough, it will quickly be there, I'm quite sure. That's it for what I wanted to say. I was a bit longer. Sorry for that, Michael and Sabine.
Thank you very much, Romain. As usual, very thought-provoking questions, even not on a red slide here, but I think good takeaways. This also as a reminder to give a feedback to Romain, please leverage and use the chat. Feel free to pose your question, oppositions, or comments to it to add on. We can go into also more details during the panel session that follows on. But without further ado, let's leave that input from Swisscom as such and from Romain, and let's jump to our next input. And as already quickly said before, we are very pleased and happy to have today also Viseka with us on board. Pascal Simon, he is head of business analytics services, and actually I feel almost all his professional life has been in data analytics and AI. As such, he has more than 25 years of experience in delivering especially solutions. And Pascal, you must have seen a lot of different use cases and projects as such, and grasped a lot of experience around good decisions and probably bad decisions as well. So I'm very keen to learn from you how you manage at Viseka this very delicate decision on how to or whether to buy, build, or even blend. So the floor is yours. Over to you.
Thank you, Michael. Glad to be here and share a few of my thoughts. But it was not 25 years of only AI. I mean, initially it was called machine learning, right? And then now since a few years we call it Gen AI. So it's a little bit of a change there. Before we start with my first slide, maybe. I would actually maybe do one step back and look at what is it actually Gen AI, how do we see that? And I have this on the next slide. How will we see that like in 10 years in the future when we look back? What will be Gen AI then? The current wave as we experience it. And I think we have to really consider this as quite a fundamental groundbreaking shift in business and society in hindsight. And I would even compare it to like the introduction of the personal computer in a workspace, like the spread of the internet, or then later the smartphone. If you look back at these events, I mean, nowadays no one can really imagine how it is to work in an office without a personal computer, right? It's like standard, everyone does it. But it changed how we work quite fundamentally. The same with the internet. How can you work without the internet nowadays? And also the smartphone. Just think about a business before, or like, let's say when the smartphone was rolled out, would have thought, well, smartphone, nice, but I don't need to care about that. Let's hire a company who will do the smartphone business for me. I keep on interacting with my customers just on the internet, on the website, let's say. Such a company will have had an issue because nowadays it's app first. You do business first with your B2C customers on the smartphone. So you need to really change your processes, your even business models to take this into consideration. And I think the same will be for Gen AI, even though I think it's even potentially bigger, this wave. I mean, we don't know it right now. It certainly feels a bit steeper. If you look back like 5 years ago, there was essentially no Gen AI, and now it's all over the place. The rollout of the PC, the internet, smartphone was not as quick. It was there, but then it took a few years until it really took hold. And I see this is much faster with Gen AI. So I have a few bullet points below, as I essentially mentioned, right? So with these new technologies and Gen AI in particular, customers start to interact differently with your services and products, and you need to take that into account. People are already now becoming more productive using these tools, but this is not the main point. The main point is essentially that also your processes can become more productive if you make them able to integrate with a Gen AI. On the other hand, it has been mentioned before, this wave of Gen AI also allows other companies and startups to enter markets that were essentially inaccessible before because of high entry barriers. That becomes much more easily doable now for small companies, and that also, of course, is a threat for incumbents. So for me, Gen AI is not just a product, a commodity, it is really a core capability for companies nowadays, and it should be treated as such. Next slide, please. Looking at this iceberg symbol, essentially what we see initially with Gen AI was always the chatbot, right? This was the first accessible interface to Gen AI for many people, and it took off really quickly. But I think for most companies, this will not be the key differentiator in the end. Of course, you need to have that, you need to master that, but in the end, what really makes a difference is underneath here. So if you are able to use AI for integration into your processes, if you master your data, process your data using Gen AI, and also build the interfaces that allow agentic systems to interact with your other systems, then can you really create value? And this is really not the same thing as a chatbot, right? So essentially, the big, I think it was on the initial slides of Michael, it was the, how did he call it? It was essentially building new business models. This is really under the surface here. This is the holy grail, essentially, if you are able to build new business model with AI, and you won't be doing that if you just stay on the surface with your chatbots. So we need to go a level deeper.
We called it rethink.
Rethink, yeah, yes. So I think that should be the goal, and what I think is you will never get to that goal if you essentially delegate too much of the complexities to other suppliers, buying software here, having something built by some other company there, then you essentially miss building up the capability to do this yourself and to discover, to rethink your business models and discover new business models that are powered then by AI. Next slide, please. The other thing that is has been true since even machine learning was rolled out is data. Data is the gold, right? So you need data also for Gen AI. Of course, you get now pre-trained models. This is nice, but still you get the value from processing your data. So whenever you talk about make or buy, keep this in mind. you have to be the owner of your data and stay the owner of your data, stay in control of your data. And it's quite easily nowadays with all these platforms that are usually in the cloud to lose grip on your data. Now, Viseka is in a financial market, financial company, so we have quite strict limits on what we can process in the cloud regarding customer data. That's really not much. So we, even by necessity or by compliance reasons, we are forced essentially to also process data on premise. Of course, this pushes us a little bit more to the build area, because we cannot buy most of the product platforms as they are in the cloud and really use them for, let's say, core business processes that usually involve customer data. So we are kind of also forced to really build stuff on premise. Of course, we don't train LLMs, not big enough for that. We use LLMs, but nowadays with all these open source tools and open weight models, it's actually pretty easy to take such a model and host it on your premise. Takes, of course, some hardware, and you need to have a certain size, also a team of engineers to run it, but it's becoming easier and easier nowadays, right? I mean, it's actually trivial to run it. It's a bit more difficult to really to run it reliably. So if you have really a custom-facing service, it's not trivial to run such a platform with the required stability. Generally, I think that doesn't mean that you always need to build stuff. You, in certain cases, makes absolutely sense to buy. What I really favor in for Viseka is that we always make sure that we know what we buy. And I think you can only know or be a good buyer if you also know how you would build it yourself. And what we typically do is that we at least build a prototype. And that gives us a few advantages. First, we then know what are really good requirements, because now with Gen AI, what is impossible today might be possible tomorrow. What some people think is trivial is in the end maybe not trivial, like this driving the car, right? I mean, it's not magic. It's still a computer that computes stuff. So there are some limits, and sometimes you have to try to find out where these limits are. And then you also know how to challenge your suppliers. And I think a good way to do that is really to try to build a prototype. Doesn't mean that you need to operate it. We have situations where we actually build a prototype, but then decided to buy, just because we get the more stable product like this that is easier to operate. But still, if I think the key thing to think about always is this capability that has a long-term value for the company, then it really makes sense rather to build something. If it's more like a commodity, like a chatbot, it can be much better to just buy it. I think that's my key insights here. I'm happy to discuss more a bit later in the panel discussions.
Thank you very much, Pascal, for sharing your views here. I love this. In order to be an effective buyer, you have to first build capabilities and gain expertise. Otherwise, it might come to a problem or a bigger dependency that it's then hard to manage. Very insightful views. Thanks for sharing. So let's move on in that sense, and let's move over to Matthias Kuhlmann, coming right now from Helvetia Baloise, or Baloise Helvetia, the newly merged organization. I can just imagine that there is a lot of things ongoing nowadays, and many thanks for making up the time today to come here. So Matthias is a data and AI strategy manager, but as such as well an automation engineer. He comes with numerous years of experience in the field of AI and program management. And as such, we are really keen now to learn. And maybe you need to tell if this is already a joint Helvetia Baloise view, or if this is currently your experience on how you're managing this decision around build, buy, or blend into your organizations. But it's great you're here, and the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Hello, everybody. And I would be happy to tell you it's already a joint Helvetia-Balvas view, but of course, things take time in a merger, so it's maybe more one flavor. But let's go into the topic. I was a lot has been already said by my colleagues, and I was very inspired also by Romain's 19 minutes, 20 startups. So today I'll tell you a little bit how we see the build, buy, or blend, and why for us platforms replace standard software. And let's go to the next slide. And maybe I'll start with a little story inspired by Roma. And it's not exactly an AI or Gen AI startup story, but a little bit before we had that COVID thing going on, and we all went to home office, and we needed a whiteboard. And luckily, we found a fabulous startup that made a whiteboard software for a reasonable price, very good software as a service tool. And as time goes by, the company grew quickly and the product also grew. And in the next release, we had video conferencing inbuilt. We already had a video conferencing, but you could also do it through the whiteboard. And then features went on. We got a happiness manager, and the whiteboard company wanted to help us with our strategy and our market view and everything. And the price went up and up. And yeah, that is what can happen with the startups and with the products. And I don't have 20 years of experience in Gen AI. I would say I really have 2 years of experience in Gen AI. I have a lot of experience in other fields in IT and insurance. And I think most companies, for most companies, it's the same. They are young companies, that's young products that are moving targets and sometimes difficult to deal with in different manners that we can go into the panel discussion also in detail. So it turns out that for us, we started and we wanted to buy as much as we could and specialized products. And then it turned out if the granularity is too fine, if the product is too much specialized, the integration effort, and also we talk about buy versus build, but it's the whole life cycle. No? It's the total cost of ownership. You have to run it, upgrade it, integrate it, run the contracts, and that all has a cost attached. So what we found is we shift back to platforms that we buy deeper down the value chain and not the very specialized use cases in insurance. So maybe next slide. Let's talk about some use cases. We tried fraud detection. Yes, there are products around. There are pre-trained models. We have trained on so many vehicle insurance contracts, but it's a different country or it's a different product. So we all know it when we work in this field. There's a lot of let's call it fine tuning. I don't mean model fine tuning, but you have to fine tune your software, your parameters, do a lot of testing, and that is very different for a highly specialized product or market like insurance in different countries, in Switzerland, in different cantons. It's just you cannot take something from another sector and plug it into another country, another domain, and it will work. That it does not work. Same for automated coverage checking. We tried and we finally implemented on a platform. Of course, we don't run models ourselves. We don't train models ourselves. We buy the usual big models as a service, but on top of the platform, we build our own use cases. And then, yeah, maybe conversational AI. It's a very interesting use case. Who of you has built a general chat internal? We did. Yeah, everybody did. And the second use case, I guess, was chat with documents. So you can upload documents. And yeah, this conversational AI topic, now we have 2 of them. And we started, there was a time before Microsoft Copilot 365 and all these tools. Turns out now any solution on the market can do that better than our internal tools. And we have contracts, finally set up contracts with big players that allow us to treat all types of documents, data classifications. So I think conversational AI, as was already mentioned, is probably overrated. We need it with unstructured data and customer facing. If you have a lot of, my take would be, if you have a lot of AI in-house in your in-house processes, you probably should do digitalization first, because where does all the unstructured data come from that you want to treat with AI? So conversational AI, yeah, we have it homemade, but not sure you want it too. So next slide. Yeah, as already mentioned, why platforms replace the standard software. Well, there's also a very interesting thing in standard software that is standard, and one could go into that. Many things that are called standard software are no standards, in the sense that there are no multiple implementations. So it's just, let's say, a monopoly or market leader, and that we call standard, but it comes with a vendor lock-in. You need to integrate. We already said that. Customization is a very interesting topic, especially in the field of Gen AI, where all of a sudden we have prompts that are the code of the software. And I've read and talked a lot about prompt engineering, but I see that many good practices of other engineering disciplines don't seem to apply to prompt engineering, testing, release management, version management. I've seen software where you customize in your production system with prompts or JavaScripts. That is not acceptable for me. And then finally, the reuse beats one-off solution. Yes, that's what we said. When you have smaller pieces of functionality on your platform, you have a chance of only implementing it once and reusing it. Whereas if you come from the other way down, you buy a complete software package, you probably have too many features, double twice. And so it is reused across customers, but in your house, you will have duplication and redundancy. And finally, the data that was already set also. So if you don't have the good data and big data, then probably you won't do a lot with machine learning and AI. And if you put the data into different products, then you need to duplicate the data, and it's difficult to synchronize back and forth. So these are all reasons why at Helvetia Balvas, of course, we have specialized products that we buy. Let's take an example, video content creation. We don't build that ourselves, but it's not insurance domain. But inside the insurance domain, our core use cases, we tend more and more to build them on a common platform so that we don't reinvent the wheel low level. But the software we've seen on the market that promised to solve insurance use cases, it didn't work so far. So with all that said, I come to my last slide. Changes ahead. Dear software vendors, today I think that, as was said before, also we have a lot of powerful tools that allow us to build ourselves on top of platform and rethink your strategy. We don't want feature creep. We don't want big locked in fixed size, fixed price project software products, but we need flexible platforms where we can build and buy single features and integrate them easily. Yeah, that's from my side. I'm very looking forward to the panel discussion. Thanks for joining and see you later.
Thank you very much, Matthias, for your insights. Very interesting. I feel this list almost becomes or could become to some sort of a checklist on where to probably consider as well a make approach. I like the thinking around building a platform, building a capability, which can further extend. I guess also this platform can be in a one way or another be hybrid built, be based on something which is then definitely on a blend approach and then customize it and adopt it and change it. So very interesting insights. So let's continue. And without further ado, let's move to our last speaker, last but not least. I'm very, very pleased to welcome Rea. Rea Wenck, she's a Chief Digital or Chief Data Officer as such at CSS. And it really comes with a broad view around AI and data and a lot of experience inside the governance, but also inside how to build up organizations, how to manage actually also this zoo of different initiatives and projects and having, difficult decisions to take on make or buy. So with more than 20 years of experience in this field, we are really keen to learn and see how you manage this at CSS, but also at the past and what has been your lessons learned. Rea, the floor is yours. Over to you. You are still on mute, I think, Rea. Now. Not yet, no. We can't hear you yet. No tone yet. I can't hear you yet. Maybe Sabine, is there something you can help with?
No. Rea is unmuted, so it should work. But maybe do a reload. Maybe it's a cache or something. No, I can't do anything from here.
Maybe there's another microphone connected to it.
Yeah, could be.
No, we can't hear you yet, Rea.
Maybe just do a quick reload, Rea. Maybe this works, and then we will check again. Because from the back end here, what I'm seeing, it should work.
We don't have it yet.
Rea, on Zoom, on the left bottom, you find audio, and then you have to check when you select which microphone is selected. That's on the top part.
Mike, do you think that she is on the wrong mic, or?
Yeah,
okay,
maybe.
So,
Could be a possibility.
Maybe, Michael, would you like to dive into some questions in the chat?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Maybe we give Rea a bit of time to reconnect again on that side. And with that, I see that the chat has already been very active. And as such, it's maybe also a good point to quickly introduce you to David. David Limacher, he is a part of our Artifact team, and he's also monitoring the chat. I see that there has been already a lot of questions and great engagements. Actually, hardly to have seen any sort of a more active panel than this so far. So this is really, really cool. But David, is there probably one open question that we could pick out now to see if Pascal, Romain, Matthias can answer? Andrea, if you are there, just try to continue to say hello.
Can you hear me? Still not.
No,
I can hear you now.
You're there.
Okay. Oh, it's working. Great.
Perfect. Yeah, sometimes technology is a bit of a problem in here. I'm so sorry for inconvenience. And I will make up for the time we missed by going very fast through my slides. Good. Can we jump to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Perfect. So in the next 10 minutes, I would like to show you how we approach at CSS this decision dilemma we have around artificial intelligence, because we think that the sourcing decision is not a technology one. It's rather a decision about the operating model. And it determines whether AI becomes a reusable capability, which is important to have sustainable success, or if it's just a one-off solution where we have maybe quick wins, but we cannot really scale. And we always have to consider 3 dimensions. So how can we create value by using AI? What are the risks associated to that? And what kind of capabilities are needed to scale? Because we read it a lot of times, POCs, pilots, they are done quickly, they are done fast and easy. But if you want to scale it over the entire organization, you struggle because you don't have the basic capabilities. So the question for us is not really building it versus the vendors. It's rather how we can create a competitive advantage by using AI, and how can we do it in a way that we can scale. So the first question, if we go to the next slide, is actually a strategic one. So what companies need to decide when they are having the discussion about how to source AI, they really need to think about where can we create competitive advantage? Where can we differentiate us by using AI? And there are some kind of principles we are using. We build it internally when the differentiation matters. So, and the urgency is not that high, because normally you don't have so many capacities in-house like you have if you're partnering or buying it externally. So if you have enough time to build it by yourself, and if it's really a differentiation factor, you have to build it. If the urgency is high and the differentiation is also high, you rather tend to blend. So some components you're then buying and some components you're building within your AI solution stack. And last but not least, if the urgency is high, but there's not really a differentiation factor behind the AI solution you want to have for tackling the business problem, you go more in the direction of buying. And of course, if there's no differentiation and no urgency, you rather defer or standardize the solution. And this two of two matrix give us the first pass choice, and then we have to go deeper, as we already heard several times before, and refine it by architectural layers. Can we jump to the next slide? Thank you. Because when we are talking about sourcing strategy and we are saying we source AI, it's not that easy, as we already have heard, because an AI solution contains several different layers which we have to consider while deciding upon our sourcing strategy. And each layer has different lock-ins, different risks and economics. So you really need to think about all the different layers needed to get to a solution. And you don't choose build or buy once, you actually choose build or buy on each layer. And sometimes even on these layers, you have different components which you may buy or may build. And what is important, I think this is clear for everyone in the call, considering all the regulations coming up for artificial intelligence, it's always important that you own the trust so that AI remains compliant and you can scale according to the regulation. So as a rule, you can say you buy the horsepower, you build the advantage, and you need to own the trust. If we can jump to the next slide. We made, based on our approach of sourcing decisions, a kind of scorecard. And this scorecard gives us a bit of guidance. And we have to ask in each of these dimensions, I listed the question. So do we have a competitive advantage based on the AI solution we want to have or to build? Do we have potentially also advantages based on our data? So you really have to bring all these layers, as I said before, to the point where you can say, yeah, here we can differentiate, or it is actually commodity. Then, as I said before, time to value is crucial. Business doesn't want to wait. It needs to go fast. But still, you have to consider, can we use a bit more time so that we can build it internally, or is a blend approach actually the right one? And as I said before, data advantage, but also data sensitivity are defining factors on how we decide upon build or buy or blend. And of course, regulatory and trust needs. So how can we prove along the entire value chain that the AI is explainable, that the data is reliable? So it's important that we have that in our own hands. And last but not least, and I think it was already mentioned several times, the operating burden. So how can we maintain sustainably these solutions and can scale them? And depending on the decision we take, if we want to buy or blend or build it by our own, there are really huge differences, especially if you consider the total cost of ownership or also the risk of the vendor lock-ins. So I think important is when you're taking decisions about your sourcing strategy, that you make your sourcing choices in a way that you consider the audit requirements, that you consider the reality that there is cost pressure and that your organization will be constantly in a change in the next few years, because as Michael pointed out, AI is not just a badge you slap on your processes. You should rather rethink how you work as a company and how you actually get your competitive advantage. So this needs to hold up in from a long-term perspective, and that's what makes a decision actually challenging, but also interesting.
Thank you very much, Rhea, for these also very, insightful facts and the way how you are organizing it at CSS. We for sure will have, as part of the panel, probably a conversation also on these factors. But I kind of like the view around, buy the horsepower, build the advantage, own the trust. Now, I feel a little bit like an animal these days, as I feel maybe we are an horsepower that could bring an advantage. That might be a way to put it, but it's a good rule of thumb for sure, right? So I also like all the different views around the whole stack, so not everything probably might be decided on a buy or a build. There could be elements from one and then switching it over to the other. So with that, let's keep the questions going in the chat. We will have some time as well. And it's obviously the presenters are now joining me also on the panel session. So let's directly jump into, and we have seen that continuum. And probably it also came, a little bit obvious during the presentation. But for the avoidance of any doubt, let's quickly do a round table. Are you more team buy or more team build? So let's probably start here with Romain. You're more team buy or build? Or where do you see yourself?
You know that, right? I'm definitely more team build.
Thank
As
you.
myself, maybe not as a company, but as myself, definitely.
And where would you see Swisscom as such?
I think Swisscom is more buy in total for all the projects we have.
Cool. Pascal, how is about Viseka?
Yeah, Viseka maybe also overall is rather a tendency to buy, but not specifically now in AI, because there we have this challenge with data privacy. So there we generally rather build. My approach is really to, let's call it maybe prototype first, then decide, right? So once you've built it, you can then decide if you're going to buy or build or keep on building it. Yes.
I like that. Get hands dirty first and then basically make a decision. Sometimes also, proof of values and the impact of a particular solution must be tested in a quick and rapid way. And only after that, you can see also how strategic, back to the Rhea framework that she has shared, how strategic, important, and how differentiating a particular solution might be. Matthias, how is it at Helvetia Baloise? Or also for you?
At the Helvetia Baloise and in the field of AI and core insurance use cases. As I said, one could say we are built on platform, build the insurance use cases, but don't build the low-level stuff by that.
So the
And
everyday
personally,
AI is kind
I'm
of
a
bought.
builder.
Yeah. Good. So Rea, you want to add also something on top of that on where is there a predominant choice for you or for CSS?
I think we are pretty balanced. I would say we go for blend, actually. We are always going through these questions and the different layers. Me personally, I'm totally fan of build, of course. I think that's a nerdy thing to say. But from a company perspective, I mean, it needs to last and it needs to be sustainable and cost efficient. So it's blend, actually.
Yeah, it might be that our group has a little bias here towards some sort of building for sure. But nevertheless, I also like this point that you pointed out there, Ray, on the organizational reality, right? And the organizational reality is that not in all the cases the make strategy is the right one. Although we would love to probably showcase also something or also to prove something that it might work, but there might also be a good evolution steps to start first with a buy scenario while then strategically rethinking and moving over into a build. So that leads me to the kind of the next question in the panel, and as you can see, we have tried to bring up a little bit this zoo of different solutions and tools. So the themes that you're going to see on the next few slides is actually how to go around this zoo, and here comes up the key question. What is the most important decision criteria when really it goes towards build, buy, or blend? So what should really drive that decision, and is there probably also something that might be misleading or initially being a nice factor? Rea, is there any thoughts on you? You had a list out there before on the key factors. Which one do you think is the most important one?
Honestly, I think still it's business strategy driving the decision. So that's one of the factors, because at the end we want to create a lasting success for the company. So it's important to have an understanding how we get there. But of course, as you said before, the reality we are in, because being a data-driven company, using AI properly, this means a transformation which goes over years. And you have to consider the maturity your company is in order to be able to decide if you want to build or make. Because as someone already pointed out in his, I think it was Pascal, but I'm not sure, it's important that you have this capability in-house, that you understand and own it, because there is a lot of business logic in it. We have IP, we have data advantage as a company. So I think these are the two factors which are really guiding the decision. So where is the potential to differentiate, and what is the maturity of the company?
Thank you very much. Any additions and thoughts from you, Pascal, on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I can absolutely second that. Also, Viseco is a more data-driven company, so it's really crucial that you, as I said, that you keep ownership on your data, and that you think about the next step. What is your next business model? For most companies, what they're earning money with today will not be as profitable in like 10, 20 years. So you need to think ahead, and key opportunity obviously is the data companies have, and so we have to elaborate a bit what can be done together with AI, with the data. What are there new business models out there? And you always have to decide when you're looking at a new software or capability you want to buy, does it make sense that we develop the capability by maybe prototyping that application? Maybe we can find future business models in that area, right? Then it might make sense to build it, even if it's more expensive than buying it. I think what would be really bad to just look at the price tag. There's always opportunity cost, both whether you buy or you build. You should also not build something That is maybe, you can do it, it's easy, but then in the end, you waste your resources on something that you could have bought. So there's no clear, easy answer here. Of course, it's a continuum, and you have to really apply the strategic thinking, as Ray also said. I think it's totally correct.
Indeed, I think I echo that in terms of there is predominant ones around speed and as such, I also think the costs. It's interesting so far. We have not touched too much on the cost side, but usually also in the organizational reality to bring that one up, that still makes a big decision part. Also, we are joining a couple of public tenders where we still as well see in the terms of the decision framework, the cost is an important one. Nevertheless, obviously, the total cost of ownership quite looks different. The profile from make versus buy versus blend actually has a different characteristics. And to some extent, what we have seen now as well in the past month is that the activation of the investment as part of a capital expenditure, as opposite to an operational expense, is starting to also become more kind of interesting for organizations. So to be able basically to put the investment done on the build case on a balance sheet as such. Right. So having looked at that, let's probably move into a next decision. And this looks like almost the director here of the zoo is a bit of a bad guy in terms of making decisions, and that leads me to the question around what's that process to make such decisions. Maybe Matthias, maybe you can add a little bit on light on that. Do you have governance boards where basically there is a concrete form, a concrete structure is done, and then decisions are being made? Or how is your decision-making process? Is it a one-timer or is it a continuous one? Because decisions might be today the best one, but tomorrow they might be different. Any thoughts on that?
So in the context of AI and AI sourcing, yes, we have boards and processes. And well, for me, the most important process is the decision process is what we call a demand process. So we start from hopefully and typically we start from a business requirement. And then we look at do we already have solutions or do we have gaps? And then comes somewhere the decision, do we want to buy a product or do we want to build? And then we've also seen that in the chat comes the decision, if it's built, do we have the skills and capacity in-house or do we look for partners? And yes, it's a structured process with boards, especially, of course, also for compliance reasons. If AI is involved, we operate in the European Union, so AI Act. We need to track all these activities, and it's a structured process, to make it short. And hopefully we start with a demand and not with, can we buy that product? But what for?
Yeah, indeed. So a process looking at different dimensions as such. And then there's another one before I'm jumping over to you, Romain, on the very same question. One dimension I also think is an interesting one is the organizational's ability to actually kind of digest the tool. So is the organization ready? Is the business ready to also work with something, especially if we look into reshape cases and then you start to make an investment? It might be the best solution ever that you have been built, but if the organization is not yet ready or if the culture is not yet set, that might also be a challenge. And certainly in these processes to review, we also see that as an factor coming up. Roma, at Swisscom, what is your experience? Is there also structured process around it with clear decision-making criteria?
We do have a lot of processes, yes, as every large company. In the context of AI, obviously, what's Matthias said is same for us. First, you need to understand what your customers need, internal or external, your specification, and so on. It's obviously a bit iterative, working more agile, but you still need, before starting, to know what you want. Then we do have a process for AI decision making, and the first step is clearly reuse. We want to force all our engineers, project managers to look around inside the company if someone is already providing something similar internally. It's obviously not easy in a large company to know what the left hand is doing, because you don't have one left hand or right hand, you have a lot of people everywhere working. So the first step is really to deep dive into what others offer and reuse. Then the second step would be to check how to buy things. That's still the priority for many contexts. And then you build, either on the platform we have with our cloud, public cloud vendors, or then last step with our internal platforms. So we do have all those steps clearly described with all the criteria that help people to make decisions.
I like that, and thanks for sharing. And I think you spot there on a very interesting thing that we also observe, especially in larger scale organizations, quite often, that the same problem is tried to be solved multiple times, right? And then almost every business unit, and probably then also IT, and then AI, and then data, they are looking into similar problems and then building then similar solution twice. And it seems like this discovery process initially to search and find, is there something similar that has already been done, could also help to make that process much more effective and efficient. Is there any add-on from probably the others of the panel into that you would like to share? If not, let's probably give a chance now to David. As said, David has helped to prepare that session as well. He's part of our team. He's a senior AI engineer at Artifact. And David, can you help us with a panel question? A question for the panel that came up from the Q&A.
Sure. So there have been a lot of questions, but also a lot of questions have already been answered, which is really good, showing really active community discussing it. Maybe one recent question, mostly to Rea, but also everyone else, is around the sensitive information that maybe gets leaked when you use an API. So if you use a blend approach and you use maybe an OpenAI API, do you have a general guideline or compliance rule regarding those risks? And maybe it also is on the decision what you do then.
Yeah, I mean, so we are a health insurer dealing with really sensitive data. I worked before in banking, private banking, and sometimes I'm surprised that the bankers think it is more sensitive than health data. Yeah, of course, there are a lot of rules, and it's also from a regulation perspective, there are nowadays a lot of discussions ongoing how we can keep the data where it is, how our customers or partners can actually decide upon the usage of the data within the company. And yes, of course, I mean, when we're talking about cloud solutions, for example, or if you're talking about AI models which we are buying, you really have to have a security and privacy architecture around that. And you need, I think this is one of the most important things in building AI solutions, you have to have data privacy and security by design built in. So yes, there are a lot of rules, and it's kind of our approach on how we handle data. We think it is a must to be on a high level of security and privacy, and that you need to have that by design in your solutions. Does that answer the question?
For me, it does. So maybe thanks to Christoph for the question, and let us know in the chat if it's not answered properly, but I assume it is.
So keep these good questions going as such, and then let me probably then jump to my next question to the panel as such. And it goes a bit on the timeline. As we know, we usually, compared to traditional IT projects, we have, I would say, in the AI space and also in the Gen AI, a lot more exploration. And there was also a question with regards to Claude Code. Is that now build or buy? If you do vibe coding as such, would be interesting to get your views. For me, it's clear it's experimentation, and as such, it's build. The challenge will be to bring it then to production, and then that comes back to my question, right? So if we look through these product or project life cycles where you have an exploration phase, and then you have an integration phase, and then you have some sort of a scaling phase bringing it to pilot, are there any specifics that you would see as such in terms of build or buy or blend? Is there anything special or different if you look at the solution to get it scaled globally into a rollout to every employee versus if you have something obviously on the exploration side? I'm not sure, Pascal, are there thoughts on that side from you?
I mean, I would say that there's a big difference to like traditional IT projects where you like, let's take, for example, you introduce an ERP system, and it's pretty straightforward. You collect your requirements, you have your test plan, you know exactly if I input this, I expect exactly this. And with Gen AI driven tools, it's of course very different. It's really cumbersome to test that, to even have a clear statement, this is now good to go to production or not good. So we invested quite a lot of time and resources to just really evaluate the output of these Gen AI tools. There was a lot of manual labor done by humans to really read the output, compare, is this good or not? It's always a bit qualitative. Of course, you can automate this with LLM as a judge and different methods, but it's still a very different approach. And it's easy to underestimate that if you buy the solution, because the suppliers typically not going to do that for you just out of the box. You still have to manage this somehow. And I think you need to be aware about that. But if you know that and you plan that, then it's fine. The other thing, as you mentioned, it's a lot of experimentation. So you don't really know where you will end up at the very beginning unless you did an extensive experimentation phase. So if you buy something, it's difficult to already have the clear criteria ready how you're going to test it. Because models evolve, it's depending, as we have heard, on prompt sometimes. So this is very different to manage, and I think yeah, a bit harder to manage, takes a bit different approach. Not claiming that we mastered that yet. Remains a challenge.
I mean, this is as usual. These are difficult decisions, and there might be several paths that lead to a successful outcome. There might be better ones or less good ones, and almost integrating the next question into the very same. Nobody talks or likes to talk about bad projects or bad decisions as such. But although I think we have to be clear in this field where it's so fast moving, a decision today to build an own enterprise GPT-based solution could become a wrong decision tomorrow because Microsoft or Google or the other big ones are just offering that out of the box. But let's come back to the point around these sourcing decisions. Are any views on your side how to avoid bad sourcing decisions in one way, which would be the success factor question? Or then on the other hand side, what do you do to recover that actually if you have made a wrong sourcing decision? What are your thoughts, Rhea?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm pretty sure everyone already was at the place that she or he took a wrong decision, especially when we were talking about new technologies, which you want to integrate in the company. And yes, I mean, I already experienced that in my early beginnings as a CDO at LGT. We actually built worldwide the first enterprise knowledge graph as a basis for sophisticated analytics, graph analytics, so that we could do kind of a 360 view on the client from a compliance perspective. And knowledge graphs back then were not known yet. So it was more on the research part. These guys and these folks, they knew what knowledge graphs are. They knew the programming languages needed, how you design ontologies, and so on and so forth. But it is a totally different world to relational databases. And we needed that for our AI solution, which we also build internally, We bought the platform back then, but we decided to build the orchestration layer and the models by ourselves. And I wasn't considering the maturity of the organization. We haven't had yet enough resources knowing these technologies. So we were relying also heavily on the external partners, which was back then a startup, which was also scaling and had issues on their own. I mean, this is always also the discussion if you're going for preferred suppliers, big suppliers, known suppliers, or if you partner up with startups. I mean, that's a different challenge because they are growing as well. So they have also these maturity levels they have to go through. And yes, back then it was a risky decision. We managed to actually successfully build the solution, and the adoption was really great. But the time and the energy and the nerves we lost on this journey was quite high. So yes, I think, as I said it also in the presentation, it's really important that you are aware of your level of maturity within the corporation, because you overload the people if you don't have the right capabilities and the right capacities to build or partner up with someone else and build the solutions by yourself.
Thank you very much, Rhea, on that. I'm not sure, Matthias, anything to add on your side? Otherwise, we would go to the next open question in the chat.
I can add maybe a little thing.
Please.
Of course, there's no way to avoid bad decisions I'm not aware of. And every good decision of today is maybe a bad one in 6 months. We already heard that. And I just want to emphasize this once again. It's a very fast moving field, AI still, Gen AI. And so if we talk about sourcing decisions, maybe think twice before you sign a 5-year contract.
Thank you very much. Yes, thinking twice. Yeah, I see you wanted to respond on that.
Thinking twice was a good trigger. What is really important, especially considering that you have to have this decision on so many layers, you need so many skilled people in this decision process. And I think this is really important and the key success factor that you have the decision at the point where the competency lies. And I think especially in traditional companies, you see that management thinks it should decide upon such things, mainly also because there is a lot of money and risk involved. But it's important that you design your process for the decision making in a way that you really have the experts at the table deciding on each layer what we should do. So that's an additional point I think is important.
Thank you very much, Rhea. So David, let's have a quick look again into the chat. We do have about 7 minutes to go. Any additional question from the chat to any of our experts?
Yes, there was one question by Joe Barros, who was wondering, there's not just a decision between build or buy, but especially when you decide on build, Rhea already went a little bit into that. There's a decision, should we completely build it internally, or should we take external partners, consultants to achieve that task? Roma already gave an answer, that it really depends on the unit and project. But maybe Matthias, you also have a view on that, how you decide in your organization whether to take external forces into the project.
Horsepowers, please, horsepowers.
Horsepower.
The right side of the force. Of course, different answers to that. One is costs, always. One is availability. Do we have the skills in-house? And one is also innovation. It's also always an opportunity if you work with an external partner to get inspired to learn new things. And we've seen the other side of the medal of this shiny coin. How do you transfer the knowledge back? Our approach is bring people in-house if possible, but we also do the cost-driven, let's build that nearshore something center over there. We have all the models possible. But yes. I think you.
Now I am on mute, so thanks for this. Yes, good insights. Is there any add-ons on Rea or Pascal that you would like to do on this?
Yeah, I think speed. It's pretty crucial. Business doesn't want to wait for a solution. I think we all know that. So sometimes this is also a factor determining if you're collaborating together with externals, because you can scale much faster if you have externals. But as Matthias said, and we already elaborated on that, it's important that you have an understanding which capabilities are key and core capabilities, and you need it inside your company. And also, if you're relying on externals, you really need to plan also the knowledge transfer. This is crucial, because otherwise you're stuck with a solution no one can really run and understand, and maybe also the adoption is not that great because of that.
Very good
Yeah,
point.
we do it similar. So we usually try to really get at least one person as part of the team to grow with the team, with the product, and then you have kind of internalized the knowledge a bit, but it's not always easy, of course.
So that probably brings us to the second last question of today. We have heard also this blend, or actually at the very introduction, I also talk about this hybrid strategy. At the very end, you probably end up with a bunch of tools that are built, a bunch of tools that are blended, a bunch of tools that are bought. So how do you govern that? How do you effectively manage that? And I put you, Roma, here on the spot. Is there any thoughts around this ambiguity? You know, how that could be? Is there specific things to do, or how do you do that at Swisscom?
The crucial aspect is the data models we have in place. So the whole data governance, all the data are supposed to be structures, where are those data to be stored, formatted, etc., etc. If you ensure you do that in a consistent way, it's relatively easy to work with different tools on different layers. You may have a low-level processing of data that is done with a tool that you buy, but you make sure that the output goes into your data structures, data storage as you always do. And then on layer above, another system that maybe you have built may use those data plus other data, combine them all and do something else. This something else is another data. And all that are called data products.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you need to master the most right now, in a very correct and very governed form. If you do that, the other issues are a lot easier to solve. So data product, and data products.
Very good. So it's interesting to see the answer in that sense, laying out the right foundation, and then actually it doesn't really depend if there is a good architecture in the background. Then actually it doesn't really make too much of a difference, possibly in terms of managing then the solution. I like that view. We are starting to get to an end of our session today. Unfortunately, there are still a lot of questions in. I invite everybody to put also LinkedIn handles into the chat so that we can continue probably the conversation offline. But before we close, I just quickly wanted to look into the next year and probably also 2026. If it's just one word, how do you see the trend now going? And let's do a quick roundtable with just one word. Do you feel the trajectory will go more towards buy? Will it go more towards build? Or is it probably a blend hybrid sort of a view? Rea, what is your view? You're first on my screen.
Blend for sure. I have to go for blend.
Blend in 2026.
Yeah, exactly. The strategy most of the companies will follow.
Thank you. What is your view, Pascal?
I also guess blend, but I would add agentic as well. So with agentic, more agentic workflows, blending also makes more sense, in my opinion.
That brings up an interesting one, the self-service. Yeah, so there is not anymore blend or build, or it's actually the self-service blend. I love it in the last minute of the panel. But let's continue. Romain, what is your view? 2026.
The politically correct answer is obviously blend, but I am going to say build and more build because build is becoming cheaper.
Very good. And last but not least, Matthias.
I also go for blend.
Very cool. So with that, I would like to thank you all very, very much, especially to my panel. It was my pleasure to host, but also to the very active chat with a lot of questions. We will make sure we follow up on open points. Let's make sure we connect. I have seen Sabine has already shared the next sessions. Please make sure to also look into my next session, which is an AI workflow automation session as well, together with Sabine here at aiLights. I'm happy to share the link in a second. But with that, I hand back to you, Sabine.
Amazing. Thank you, Michael. Just on time. Amazing. So I'll go with blend and we'll add vibe coding. So I'll have to. So thanks, Michael, and thanks to the Artifact team, David, and all the other team members. And thanks to our guests, Romain, Pascal, Matthias, and Rea, to share your insights on your AI sourcing strategies. So really great to have you with us. I'll need to process all of this content now on my way to Davos, and we'll check out the AI Davos house today. And Michael, I wanted to check with you, can we share the slides afterwards with the participants? I guess so.
In my point of view, yes, as it has been streamed, I also assume that each of the panelists will agree to that. But other than that, let me know, and then I'll get it through to you in a shareable version.
Would be nice. And to all of the participants, if you are interested in hosting a session like Michael was doing this today, or speak at our Zurich meetup on Swiss AI and Swiss Data AI, feel free to reach out to me, and I would love to hear from you. See you soon. And wishing everybody a great afternoon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Have a good day.
And you.
Stop. Record. Stop. Super. So I think I'll have to end here. If you would like to stay, I will drop out. Maybe you would like to share something. I need to catch the train. So see you soon. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Sabine. See you soon.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Danke, Matthias.